When I was a child, almost every movie and TV show I watched was dubbed. I didn't speak English, so I had no choice. Years later, when my English became good enough to watch movies without translation, I decided to revisit some of my favorite shows. And I couldn't believe what I discovered. I remember watching one of my favorite shows and waiting for the scene. I knew it by heart. I knew exactly what the characters were supposed to say. At least I thought I did. Then I watched it in English and the lines were completely different. The joke worked differently. The personality felt different. The entire scene had different feeling. That's when I realized the translator wasn't translating words. They were translating meaning. Many of the conversations weren't what I remember them at all. Sometimes entire ideas had changed. And that's when I realized something even more important. Translation is never really about translation. It's interpretation. And the same thing happens inside your head every time you translate before speaking English. Imagine someone asks you a question in English. What did you do this weekend? Seems simple, right? But many learners do something like this. Create the answer in their native language, translate it into English, check the grammar, search for vocabulary, finally speak. By the time you're ready, the conversation has already moved on. The problem isn't your English. The problem is that your brain is doing twice as much work as it needs to. Maybe you've experienced this before. Someone asks, "How was your weekend?" In your native language, you could answer immediately. But in English, your brain starts thinking over time. You think about sentence, you translate it, you check grammar, and while you're still building the perfect answer, the other person has already changed the subject. Or maybe you're at work. Someone asks you your opinion during a meeting. You know exactly what you think. But before you can translate everything into English, somebody else starts talking and the opportunity is gone. Languages don't work like dictionaries. Words can be translated. Ideas often cannot. Every language has different expressions, different humor, different logic, different ways of describing the world. That's why direct translation often sounds strange. You are not translating meaning, you are translating words, and meaning can get lost along the way. Let me show what I mean. In French, calling someone a ship can actually be a compliment. It can suggest strength, beauty, and admiration. Try saying that in English. You're a ship. People won't think you're being poetic. They will think you're being weird. The words are translated. The meaning is not. And that's exactly why thinking word for word creates problems. This is why people keep telling you, think in English. Not because it's some sort of magic language learning trick, but because it removes an entire step. Instead of native language to English, you start doing idea to English. And that's much faster. The truth is that you cannot force yourself to think in English overnight. It happens gradually. The more English you listen to, the more books you read, the more conversations you have, the more your brain starts recognizing English patterns automatically. And eventually, something surprising happens. You stop translating. You simply know what sounds right. Next time you're about to translate, pause for a second. The next time you want to say something in English, don't start with a sentence. Start with an idea. Forget the exact word for a moment. Ask yourself, what am I trying to communicate? Then say it using the English you already know. Maybe the sentence won't be perfect. Maybe it wouldn't sound sophisticated. So what? Communication is more important than translation. And that's exactly how native speakers think. They don't search for perfect sentences. They express ideas. The truth is that you cannot force yourself to start thinking English overnight. It happens gradually. The more English you listen to, the more books you read, the more conversations you have, the more your brain starts recognizing English patterns automatically. And eventually, something surprising happens. You stop translating. You simply know what sounds right. Next time you're about to translate, pause for a second. The next time you want to say something in English, don't start with a sentence. Start with an idea. Forget the exact words for a moment. Ask yourself, what am I trying to communicate? Then say it using the English you already know. Maybe the sentence won't be perfect. So what? Maybe it sounds not that sophisticated. But communication is more important than translation. And that's exactly how native speakers think. They don't search for a perfect sentence, they express ideas. So if speaking English feels slow and exhausting, ask yourself, are you speaking English or are you translating? Because those are two different skills. And the more time you spend translating, the harder fluency becomes. The goal isn't perfect translation. The goal is direct communication. And that's when speaking starts to feel natural. Now tell me, do you still translate in your head before speaking English? Or have you already started thinking directly in English? Let me know in the comments. And in the next video, we are going to talk about another reason many learners struggle. Why native speakers seem impossible to understand. See you there.